King Radio Network at ParanormalKing.com.
Welcome to the Paranormal News Insider for the week of September 24th, 2019, and this is officially episode number 408. Makes me feel old. This is your host, as always, Dr. Brian D. Parsons, and we are live right here on the Paranormal King Radio Network at ParanormalKing.com. And sheesh, I had to take a week off there with the big event coming up. Last weekend, Storm Area 51, had to rest up for that, get ready to run. No, not really. I didn't go out there. It's good to be back. It feels like I've been gone for a month, but it's only been a week, and we're back. And a little bit of news to catch up on. Of course, it's been a little crazy lately, and we'll talk about some of the stories that have been kind of percolating over the last 2 weeks or so. So we're going to talk about the China Loch Ness Monster. Yes, it's been identified. And more alligator stories. I don't know if you guys like these stories. I love it. I love these alligator stories. They're really interesting stuff that's happening out here in the Northeast in regards to alligators running amok. They're popping up everywhere, it seems like. And speaking of Loch Ness Monster, I know everybody loves the Loch Ness Monster. Okay, fine. Not everybody likes the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster videos are branching out. Pun intended with that. And, well, of course, obviously, we'll talk about a little thing that happened over the weekend. Not sure if you saw it. Might have been on a news channel or 2 or 20. I'm calling this story Living Out Their Memes. Yes, Living Out Their Memes. The Storm Area 51 alien stock aftermath. We'll put all these numbers together and kind of sort through a lot of misinformation that came out over the weekend because of so many people that were there, media-wise, probably outnumbered the actual people showed up to do any rating or having any fun. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth. And like I said, I probably read about 80 articles. I haven't even had time to watch too many YouTube videos. Only a couple of people that had been mentioned in stories or that I knew were going to be there in advance, and I kind of watched what they were doing on their way out there. And but gosh, there's so many. There's probably 300-400 videos I gotta watch, and I haven't even gotten that far yet. But anyway, let's look at the calendar here before I get too carried away. Gosh, it's almost October. Almost October. October will be here officially next week. So next week's show will be next month's show as well. It's kind of cool. Ghost conferences and conventions. My calendar is wrapping up, but still have, 2 here left in September. The Vulture City Paracon, September 27th and 28th in Wickenburg, Arizona. And the Forest Moon Paracon, September 28th in Sedro-Woolley, Washington. Cool. Then, of course, October. October is the big month. There's a ton of events in the ghost field in October. And I got stuff all the way through the end of November, which is pretty cool. Including the, got to mention this one, the October Haunt Fest 2019 takes place October 30th in Cayuga, Indiana, which is on the border there by Illinois. So, well, if you're anywhere near there, you're going to want to go to this event. Thinking of what else here. Well, UFO events, not a whole lot left on my calendar. Nothing for September. Only 4 more really on my calendar. Pretty sure I'm missing a couple there. But anyway, cryptozoology events. Also none in September, but a handful in October. And that's how I like to spread them out. Ghosts, UFOs, and cryptid. But that doesn't mean that there are no ghost speakers at the cryptid event and no cryptid speakers at the ghost events or cryptid. You know what I mean. There's usually a blend at most of these. Ghost events tend to be more ghost events, but cryptid events tend to be all pretty much cryptid events. But you will see some of these that are complete mixtures of all the above. And I guess typically most UFO events are all UFO events, but it's not always the case. Some of these events are a mixture, but I put them in the category in which a majority of the speakers that I'm aware of are going to be talking about. So check out the calendar, the list of events. And again, as always, if you have any information about any conference or convention taking place this year or next year, I'm starting to get a little list going of conferences, conventions for 2020. I'm going to start putting that up on the website soon, probably at the end of October, or at least getting them ready to launch. I know there's a few that may be taking place very early in the year, so I want to be out ahead of that. And again, you can get a hold of me at paranewsinsider.com through the website or through the contact form on the website at paranewsinsider.com, and also through the social media outlets. The Twitter is, well, at Paranews Insider, and Facebook is, well, Paranews Insider. So you can find me there and get a hold of me and let me know, hey, you missed out on this event or one's coming up, because I can't do all this by myself. I try to, but my interns, they all quit for the year, so I don't have anyone to do all this research for these conferences, conventions. My whole staff left for the winter already, so I'm out here on my own. So no Snapchat. I'm too old for the Snapchat stuff. Well, that's for the kids. That's for the little folks. I do have Instagram, but don't really do too much with that, unfortunately. I need to get that going a little bit more. So yes, let's jump into some news. We got all sorts of stuff happening, and a little bit behind for the month of September. And it's, geez, I only did what? I had to do 3 shows this month, didn't I? Pretty sure I did. I had to have done 3 shows this month. I know I did last week. No, I only did 1. Jeez. So yeah, I missed 2 weeks, and I'm only going to do 2 weeks. So this week, no, I'll do 3 weeks. September 10th was the last show, and we talked about, let's see, update on Alligator Rob. Oh, and Chance the Snapper, by the way. We talked about the Loch Ness Monster story finally surfaced that I've been waiting over a year for, about the DNA testing of the water of the loch to determine what animals were out there. That stirred up a little controversy, which we're actually going to talk about a story related to that tonight. And, of course, we talked about the Storm Area 51 event that was running out of steam. And we'll see how that turned out as we mop up that mess. I guess sweep it up into the dustpan and head forward. We also talked MUFON sighting statistics, and yeah, that's pretty much about it. But if you want to hear that, my goodness, you can go pretty much anywhere and everywhere to find that podcast through the Paranormal News Insider or through Paranormal King Radio Network. And I upload all my stuff right up to Podbean pretty much right after the show, so you can get it there. From there, I don't know where it goes. These magical elves come and they take it out of my computer and they run amok all over the internet and dump it off everywhere. I've heard rumors that it's on Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and there's even a YouTube channel, because I got to be a YouTube star. It's where I'm going to make all my money eventually. When I retire, I'm going to be a YouTube star, I guess. Well, okay, maybe not. Maybe not. Don't take me seriously here, because I don't monetize any of that stuff. I shouldn't even joke about that. But anyway, into cryptid news we go, and we're going to go out to China. So make sure you got your passports in hand and ready to show the officer at the gate, because the Loch Ness Monster is probably on vacation. That's what a lot of people were suspecting when a video of a suspected monster showed up in, I guess it was a tourist was taking video in the Yangtze River in China. This video created all sorts of speculation. A lot of people thinking maybe this is a cousin of the Loch Ness Monster. We pretty much killed the Loch Ness Monster, right? It's dead, so it's got to pop up somewhere else. Numerous short clips of the video turned up online in the last couple of weeks showing what appears to be a large black snake-like creature swimming in the dark brown river. It's alive. It's moving. At least that's what the video looks like. Now, the creature swimming is actually near the Three Gorges Dam scenic area, which is kind of a controversial thing. They dammed up part of the Yangtze River and chased a lot of people out of there that were living in that area. But, all in the name of 21st century technology, right? The creature was believed to be about 10 feet long by some, which is pretty big. Don't get me wrong, 10 feet is pretty nice. But some people thought this thing was up to 65 feet long, and that we're only seeing a portion of the much larger body that was below the surface. Wang Chunfang. I'm not making that up. I'm not making fun of anybody. That's the real name that I copied off of a website here. Wang Chunfang, who is a professor at Huazhong Agricultural University, said that it might be a huge water snake, such as a Burmese python, swimming in the river. Wow, that's pretty scary. But really, I don't want to go after a professor. I mean, I am a doctor, but gonna say no. I'm gonna say not likely on that one. Sorry, not something that could be ruled out. But a lot of other people, including other scientists, point out that this was way too heavy of a flow of current. Snakes are going to avoid that, and the object appeared to be swimming against the current, which is not something that a snake is really going to be able to do, especially that size. They don't really swim. Like they have little flippers and stuff to paddle through the water. Other thoughts were that this was a squid or even a Chinese sturgeon. Sturgeon, you blame everything. It's swamp gas for UFOs and it's sturgeon for water creatures, I guess. Some people were even crazy enough. I know. Brace yourself for this one. This is how crazy and ridiculous people were thinking this thing was. Now, some people went to the edge and said that this might, in fact, actually be, brace yourselves. This is out there. Actually, might be a man-made object caught below the surface. That is just ridiculous. Why would you think that? And that this man-made object was just dancing with the heavy current, caught on something below. I mean, just ridiculous. We'd think that's just silly stuff, silly talk. Come on. It's got to be a monster. It's got to be a Chinese sturgeon, of course. They hang out all the time on the surface. Everybody sees one all the time. And now, the initial video was determined to have been filmed back on September 3rd of this year with the busy river. It didn't actually take too long to figure out what the object was. It did take a couple of weeks to confirm it, or for it to get confirmed by the media. September 15th, which I don't remember when the video came out. I think the video came out about 4 or 5 days after it was filmed, so maybe only about 10 days or so. So September 15th, it was determined that the object was, in fact, a large black plastic mesh bag that was snagged on the rocks or something else below the surface. Maybe it was snagged on a Chinese sturgeon. Maybe. I don't know. We're really reaching at this point. The heavy flow of water made it appear as though it was swimming. Kind of an optical illusion. And we've seen this before. If you've followed this show at any point in time over the last 10 years, 11 years now? My goodness. It's a long time. You've heard different stories. We've had a few dealing with ice flows. So ice getting frozen on ropes and other objects, and the water flowing through this object, making it look like the object was actually swimming through the current. But in reality, now the water is just flowing over this object that's caught. It's really sad that scientists would be fooled by this. especially a professor at Wang Chung Fang at Huazhong Agricultural University. But yeah, we're all fools, I guess, at one point or another. But mystery solved. We can officially put that one in the solved bin. It's right next to my trash. Actually, it is the trash, but we'll hold on to that because I guarantee you, down the road, we'll be talking about this story again in some form or fashion because people will be fooled again by objects tied to something or stuck on something, and we'll be right here where we're at again. And speaking of being right where we're at again, let's talk some crocodile stuff. And since Dita's back, I better put this link in there. She'll never let it go if I don't put the link in the chat room there. I think I got a couple of pictures too. One of them might be a little racy. Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, if you're in the chat room, you get little early access. I call it early access because I do like to add another dimension to the show with the chat room. Obviously, people ask questions. There's interactions. They talk about things that try to distract me, so I get confused where I'm at on the show, which is fine. It's great. It's what a chat room's for, to have conversations, and hopefully the show can inspire conversations and people talking about different subject matter. But also, I throw in the links to these stories, so you can look at the stuff yourself. You can read the stories or see the pictures. And my links are not always the popular ones. They're going to show up on websites or share through Facebook or pop up on paranormal news sites such as The Anomalist or any of the other big paranormal news sites out there. I dig through and I try to find current information or correct information. I do the work. And some of the links do show up on my website through the news section. Let me see here. On the news links. So on the news links, yes, I do have the Anomalist. Yes, I do have the Unexplained Mysteries links there, but that's really just some of the links. I go above and beyond. I use a lot of other links that are out there, and I do research because not all stories are the same, and we'll talk about that with this Area 51 thing, which kept me very, very busy. So I try to go through these stories to make sure that you have the correct information, because the goal with the show is to document these stories as they happen, to really give you the truth, way behind what the headline says and what people think or feel about these stories, what really happened in these stories. And I see somebody in the chat room says that nobody died at Area 51. That's not true. There was 2 deaths, and we'll talk about that. That's what we call a cliffhanger in the business, a teaser, if you will. 2 deaths, the Area 51 raid. We'll talk about that when we hit that more towards the bottom of the hour here. Yes, 2 deaths. Not what you, don't get too upset. Don't cry. It's okay. Not what you think. Anyway, so yeah, I go the extra mile for you guys on the show, trying to dig in to find the truth behind these stories, because what happens is people are, I don't know about the attention deficit part that I was thinking in my mind, but the 24-hour news cycle, it seems like news is sped up so much. We have instantaneous access to information with Twitter and Facebook and all these other social media things, that anything that happens anywhere in the world, we know about it right away. And what happens, kind of an effect of that cause, is that people get bored. A story comes out, we absorb what we want, and then we move on to the next big story. Unfortunately, stories take time to develop, and information comes in small chunks, especially through the media. So it takes time for all this information to kind of congeal together, and for people to disseminate it, find fact from fiction, and present it to you, the public, or myself, the public. And what happens with Twitter and Facebook and everybody focused on social media instead of print media, which I grew up with newspapers, print media, and The good thing about print media is you have time to actually put these stories together, unless it happens later at night. They have time to put this stuff together, proofread it, make sure it's okay, make sure the facts or information is correct before it's put into print. And even then, stories develop the following day. And as we're reading the newspaper, we can find inconsistencies or things that are wrong. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't perfect. But now stuff is just pushed out so fast, and there's so much competition between news sites. I'm not even talking about paranormal news sites, just regular media. There's so much competition. People are fighting to get stuff out that I've noticed a really lowering of facts and information. It's just really just pumped out so fast that people sometimes don't proofread their information, let alone their content. I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but anyway, let's get back. So we were in China. Well, pack your bags. We're headed back to the United States, and we're going up to I don't know what you'd call it. What would you call Michigan? I guess the warm lake encrusted and encompassed. I don't know. It's a beautiful area. I was up there earlier this year, and actually close to where this story happened. And of course, I'm talking about alligator sightings again. The random crocodilian sightings continue here in 2019. We had a few last year. And of course, earlier this year, we saw 3 separate sightings in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, which was really weird. Followed by a big story in Chicago with the alligator nicknamed Chance the Snapper. My favorite story of the year, I think, so far. This latest sighting occurred in a town called Temperance, Michigan, when someone thought they saw an alligator swimming in the pond on property that's by the Bedford Junior High and High School. It's actually like a campus. So they both occupy this area. The pond is behind, I want to say it's behind the junior high. One of the teachers who saw this alligator crocodilian-like creature contacted authorities last Thursday, and the creature was in this pond, which is used for the school's biology program for the students, which is a little scary. Experts came out and initially thought this was a caiman, but when they did finally capture it on Friday, it was identified as an American alligator. No passport necessary. The alligator was transported to the Indian Creek Zoo, which is actually just less than 2 miles away from the schools. Zoo officials report the alligator was about 3 feet long and believed to be about 3 years old. Probably old enough to go to the junior high school at this point. The alligator, obviously, they don't live in Michigan. Not native to the Northeast at all. I think, what was it? Virginia? So southeast of Virginia is as close north as they get. They're along the ocean and some of the swamp areas because it's pretty temperate. But they don't like the cold very much. They can live in it, but not for long. 3 feet long, ginormous. I know, not very big. I do have a picture of the little guy. 3 feet is not very big, but I'll tell you what. When you're in Michigan and you see a 3 foot long alligator, it's the biggest thing you've ever seen in your life. It's spooky scary. What'd I break? I broke something. We'll figure it out. So, we're not used to seeing alligators in the Northeast, but brace yourself. This thing is ginormous. It looks huge. Not really. So there he is. There's the alligator wrangler with a ginormous alligator in his hands. They had a lot of fun. I guess they had fun in the schools, and not even a pair of gloves at this point, let alone boots. It's not that big. The experts, I don't know why they thought it was a caiman, but I guess because of the coloring of the tail, but color really doesn't have too much to do with that. These caiman are scary. They're from the islands. They like banks, I guess. Anyway, the Indian Creek Zoo, again, less than 2 miles from the school. Zoo officials report the alligator, 3 feet long, and 3 years old, approximately. They're guessing. Doesn't have ID. American alligators, yes, they do not live in Michigan. Unfortunately, like all these other reports in the north, the alligator is believed to be a dumped pet. Probably not escaped, but that happens as well on occasion. And I thought I liked Chance the Snapper, but zoo officials also said the reptile has been named Renegade and will spend the fall and winter inside a heated barn before moving into a new enclosure in the spring. Renegade. And, I first thought that maybe the school was named Renegades or something to do with the Renegades, but they're actually the Mule. Mule. Not sure about that. They might want to rename the school the Alligators or something. The Renegades with the alligator. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, guys. So Temperance is in southeastern Michigan. So really and truly, it's almost in Ohio. It's pretty much in Ohio's back pocket there, south of Detroit, but closer to Toledo. Literally, broken car window throw from Toledo. That's a shot at my own state here. Very close to Lake Michigan as well. Very close to Lake Michigan. And we've, last few years, I could tell you probably 5 or 6 alligators seen in Lake Michigan. So I don't know who's doing it, but stop it. It's not very good. And this story, one of the reasons why I like talking about these stories is, it's not really a true cryptid because people let these things loose. But if you have an alligator, don't just throw it in a pond. Don't throw it in a lake. Take it somewhere. Even if you've illegally taken it, the right thing to do is for the animal. Because if this animal was not discovered and they weren't using the biology pond and it got colder, this poor alligator would have suffered and slowly died. It would have died of starvation very slowly before the cold hit it. That's not a very nice thing to think about. So if you're going to take an alligator, you're going to have one as a pet, be responsible. Be responsible. And it's weird. I didn't know this. I actually learned when researching the story that there was another escaped alligator, a legitimately escaped alligator, in Milford, Michigan, back in July of this year. The person who spotted this alligator, this one's a little bit bigger, I think about 4.5 feet long, knew the alligator, recognized it, I guess. I don't know what his name was. But he knew who the owner was, so they kind of lassoed it with leashes and rope and held it captive until the owner could come and get it. But I didn't know about that one. So I'm going to add that to the list. But Michigan and Illinois, 2 of the biggest places that we've seen alligator sightings here in the Northeast recently, which is really weird. Stop releasing alligators into the wild. Not good. Not good for them. Not good for anybody else either. I mean, like I said, I would not want to, and I've heard of them appearing in some of the reservoirs that I've kayaked in. And like I said, I did drive through that area a couple of times. And had I been walking through the water or you don't expect to see something like that. And 3-foot alligator is not going to take down a human, not going to take down a person. But they could be dangerous to a child. And if they're in there long enough for a few months, they could grow pretty big and could be a threat to pets, animals, or other people. And of course, they don't belong in certain areas. So we don't want to do that. But let me get off my soapbox and get back to the news. Yes, James Willis. Spooky world of James Willis. Willis is, I consider him a pretty good friend of mine. Known him for years. This is coming from the chat room, by the way. If you're not in the chat room, you're missing out. But James A. Willis, great guy, great researcher, funny guy too. Very, very energetic. I'll leave it at that. Did investigate with him a few times, or actually a couple times. But we were at the Haunted Hillview Manor not that long ago. And I had a great time out there with him. So let's see, Arcane Radio. Gosh, I forgot to listen to that. Forgot to listen to Arcane Radio. Ouch. Well, he's from Ohio. Of course, he's from Ohio. But sorry, Lon, I gotta get caught up on that show. Anyway, before I lose my place completely, yes, the Loch Ness Monster is back. It's alive. It's on video. You see the video? It's there. It's a real video. And it was not by some person 3 miles away up on a hill taking a picture of the blurry lake with a dot. And people went a little crazy about the story. I kind of sidestepped it, I have to admit, on the September 10th show. It was on my list of stories to talk about, and it got left out. Honestly, it was... I wrote a quick little blurb, and I didn't even mention it. I just kind of sidestepped and said, this isn't going to be anything. No one's going to be talking about this in a couple of weeks. But it continued. And it continued. And people are still talking about it. I don't know why. This is really a no-story, but got to address it. So, yes, back on September 1st, so over 3 weeks ago, people went a little crazy on social media when the Ness District Salmon Fishery Board released a video that hinted at a video capture of the Loch Ness Monster. It's true. People did take the tweet and Facebook post seriously, even though it had a laughing emoticon with it. I mean, it's pretty much a dead giveaway. They're not being serious. When you see a laughing emoticon with tears coming out of it, that's probably not the stamp of scientific approval right there. Now, the posts were piggybacking the story of Professor Neil Gemmell, who was actually tagged in the posts that the only animal related with any kind of explanation to potentially explain the Loch Ness Monster, that being a real animal, was a giant eel. So in the video, a brown trout is seen in the foreground, and a large, dark, ominous shape slowly passes by in the murky water behind it. Of course, the media pushed this story, making it a little bit more believable, since so many people were talking about it and covering it and putting it in their... It's been a slow news week, I guess. So this made a lot more people think that this could be Nessie, or that the giant eel theory might be correct. Chris Conroy, the river director of the Ness District Salmon Fishery Board, is the one who posted the short clip to social media. He admits that the footage kind of does resemble a large eel, but it really wasn't meant to be confused. They were pretty sure it was a large branch instead. They were pretty sure it was just wood floating through. Now, he commented, he says, quote, "A UK national tabloid actually doctored the image to make it look more like a giant eel on their front page, but we are 100% certain that it was a large tree branch washing down the river," unquote. Yes, UK national tabloid. That kind of doesn't really narrow it down because there's a lot of them. Quite a few of those. And over the years, I've kind of sort of sidestepped those channels a lot more and more, unless it's just entertaining news. But yeah, they're doctoring images now to make them look more eel-like, I guess. European eels, which were cited in the Neil Gemmell report, are quite frequently seen in Loch Ness, but are only able to grow about 4 feet long, with about 2 feet being the average size. So you're not going to really see too many 4-foot-long giant eels swimming in Loch Ness. 2 feet, pretty much the biggest you're going to see. Conroy also commented that he's happy with this story's success and virality, since it also helps to raise awareness that the European eel has had its numbers dropping nearly 90% since the 1990s, and is now considered critically endangered. So in that case, one day the European eel might be a cryptid. You might not see these guys. Yeah, they start out their trip down in the Caribbean as little guys, and they ride the water all the way up to Loch Ness and other inlets. I mean, Loch Ness is a pretty big area, so that's where they hide out at. That's where they reproduce and They do it all over again, I guess. So let's get that link in the chat room for all y'all that are wanting to do your own research. I mean, yeah, you could always Google stuff. I get it. Everybody's got Google, or they got Alexa, or they got somebody they can talk to on their phone that pulls up the stuff for them. But I like to do a little bit of work for y'all. So let's go to, we're going to go from, let's see, we went to Michigan, from China, now to Scotland. Now we're going to go to, why not? Let's go to Nevada. And UFO news for the week. Of course, some of the, and I'll keep it limited. I'll only do 2 stories. How's that? 2 stories on the Storm Area 51 event. The first one, happened before all this. Y'all? No, not in the South, not yet. The party was still over a week away when the first arrests connected to the Storm Area 51 event, which was replaced by the alien stock, which was replaced with who knows what. I don't know. It's all confusing. I don't know what it was called. 2 Dutch tourists were apprehended at the Nevada National Security Site, not Area 51, the Nevada National Security Site. That's the place where they blew up the nuclear bombs. That's where the tests were. Not somewhere that I would want to go poking around the dirt in. Not me. I don't want to glow at night. And I like having just 2 legs. I don't want 8 legs or something growing out of my head. Anyway, they were apprehended well within marked gates back on September 10th at the Nevada National Security Site. The 2 men were detained, had their car searched, and were arrested by the Nye County Sheriff's Office. The following Monday, Govert Sweep, 21 years old, and Ty's Granzier, 20 years old, were sentenced 10 days in the county jail. But they decided instead to go ahead and pay the little fine of $2,280 apiece to avoid the jail time. In addition to that, the 2 also surrendered their camera equipment, an aerial drone, as well as a computer that were in the car. And all of this valued by their attorneys at around a nice round $10,000. Yikes. So 15 grand for the little adventure behind the gates. Yeah, I would have taken the jail time. Jeez, I'll just sit out what a great story I would have when I got home. The 2 had planned on posting footage of Area 51 prior to the big events that took place over this last weekend, but it doesn't look like it panned out too well for the pair. And in addition to that, if the 2 are ever caught again at the Nevada National Security Site, they could be facing conspiracy charges, which I don't think you could just pay a fine for that. It's definitely a beyond county jail time. I'm thinking that's prison time for those 2. Granzier said, quote, "We didn't want to cause any trouble. It's all gone a little out of hand," unquote. You think? This story would be enough, I think, would be enough to keep most sane people from trying to get into the Area 51 site. Or would it? Of course, that event took place toward the end of last week, I guess you could say, early Friday morning, late Thursday night. People are crazy. But these 2 Dutch guys, not smart. They went past several areas that were marked no trespassing, including signs that say no drones. And they still went in. They were apprehended, testing the limits there. I don't know how far they got or how many miles, but they were swarmed by officers. I'm not sure about helicopters. Detained for the Nye County Sheriff's Department. Not smart, guys. Not smart. They probably got a good story to talk about. I was going to look them up to see. Maybe they got a YouTube channel out there somewhere. They'd be pretty stupid to really talk too much about what happened. I'm sure they had some sort of order against them talking about what happened to them or whatever. But that's a lot of money. $15,000, essentially what they were fined between the 2. They lost their equipment. You don't go to a government facility and try to film in a secure military site. Not smart at all. And of course, yes, the raid happened last weekend. The Raid Area 51 event, as you know, as you've probably read 9 million times in the last couple of weeks, started out as a complete joke. It was just a place for bored people to post memes on Facebook, but a lot of people took it a little too seriously. And anticipation, the popularity of this event exploded pretty fast, very quick. The media took part in that as well. They jumped on it. They spread the popularity, kind of like blowing on a fire, just kind of erupted, got the government involved. The Air Force made comments about it, wish they would have just left it alone. But it continued to fester. And Maddie Roberts, the 20-year-old kid behind the keyboard, decided to put on a concert instead. He dragged this thing a little too long, in my opinion, then decided that, hey, people are going to go. Let's have a concert instead. He named the concert idea Alien Stock, and that also fell apart with just over 2 weeks prior to the event. Last minute, weekend and a half basically prior, Monday morning, he backed out. Says, nope. Talked to County West of the Little Alien, whose property was where the alien stock was going to take place. And he says, nope, I'm pulling out. I'm not doing it. A lot of people reported that this event was not going to take place because Maddie Roberts pulled out. Well, that wasn't true. That was the beginning of some media deception. I don't know. I think they got paid for telling people not to go. Pretty much, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. Let's see. Well, he pulled out. He didn't want to do this because he said that there was a lack of planning and a possibility that more people may show up than the area could contain. It might lead to some injuries. Personally, and this is just coming from me, it's just what I think and feel. I didn't read this anywhere, but I think that Maddie Roberts got some sort of representation, some legal representation, and realized that lawsuits would more than likely pile up for him because he would be taking the blame for everything. And he's not completely out of the woods as of yet, according to some other recently released news. This left Connie West and the Little Alien Inn to continue what she had started by selling out her inn and the campsites to host a concert event. She'd brought in volunteers and put together a lot of stuff to get a lot of stuff put together. So 500 porta potties all over the place. There was a question in the chat room about charging for water. Well, Nye County and Lincoln County, mainly Nye County, they had a lot of money because they declared state of emergency beforehand. So they paid for security. They had a huge tent for first aid, and they also had giant trucks. So those giant trucks that you see, like sometimes there's gas, sometimes there's milk. Hopefully not in the same truck. I'm just saying, the big silver tanker trucks. They had those filled with water that were on hand. So there was plenty of water, probably more water than people. So wasn't really anything necessarily for sale there that I know of. I'm sure the Little Alien made a little green themselves that weekend, but they were supposedly pretty busy with breakfast, so I guess that's what they were charging for. Let's see what else was going on that weekend. So also Hico. So Hico was about an hour and a half away. They had Area 51 base camp. So technically, events in the place. This was actually the first place that they had talked about having events. So Hico named themselves the Area 51 base camp at the Alien Research Center. Now they plan to have music. They plan to have concerts. They had a DJ, Paul Oakenfeld, I think his name was, from the United Kingdom. They plan to have some movies and also had some presenters as well, which is probably where I would have headed, to be honest, but I didn't go. Maddie Roberts molded his alien stock event, took it out of Rachel and molded it into a pre-existing event in Las Vegas, which was called the Area 51 Celebration. All confusing, but that's where they had the green Budweiser cans. Pretty cool. They're going for $10 to $200 on eBay the last time I saw it. I still want one, but I'm not paying $10 for an empty can. No way. So Vegas is also where a lot of other events were taking place at the same weekend, as well as the weekend prior to this big event. I think that was part of the problem. So there were so many things happening all over the place. And as we mentioned, I think it was Lincoln County had denied permits for other events to take place. So they were trying to keep it in a few areas, but there was no cohesiveness. So, with Matty Roberts pulling out of his event, a lot of media was reporting that there was no event going to happen in Rachel. So people were a little, I think, apprehensive to go to Rachel. So there was a little bit of influx of people in Vegas, but then you heard about the thing in Rachel and Heiko. So there was just people spread out all over the place. No cohesive event to tie people together. The large crowds were really spread out all over the place. But what happened? Like I said, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of, it seems like the media really downplayed a lot. They really were negative about this. And they said, well, out of the 2 million people, only 50 or 75 showed up, or 100 people showed up. I mean, come on. Did you really think that 2 million people were going to go? Anytime you get more people saying they're going to go to a Facebook event versus people that are interested, something's wrong with those numbers. Anyway, it does seem like the news outlets are watering down how many people were actually there or the things that actually happened there. Many outlets said that no one tried to raid the base. This was absolutely not true. More than one media outlet, CNN, ABC, CBS, they all said that nobody tried to cross the gates. This was not true. I don't know why they would misrepresent the truth when all you had to do was ask the Lincoln County Sheriff. He had a press conference about it. Did they report it? No. Why not? I don't understand that. Highly underreported injuries and accidents. Only some of the local places were talking about some of the incidents, including the 2 deaths, which I'll talk about here. And speaking of that, it was weird. I don't understand what happened with social media. Everybody on social media was so excited about this thing. But yet on Saturday, even Friday, I saw a lot of people posting that they were unhappy that nobody was killed. What is wrong with people? Really stupid reaction, I think, to people who showed up. Again, despite the warnings by the Air Force, the town of Rachel. And the town of Rachel had a lot of signs up telling people to go home. They don't want them there. They even took down the extraterrestrial highway there on 375. They took all the signs down. They didn't want people stealing them. Or they didn't really want people stopping and taking their pictures by them. It actually was what they said. They get stolen all the time, actually. Both counties of Nye and Lincoln were warning people about the lack of infrastructure, gas, water, medical, and other amenities. But people still showed up. So the original idea was to storm the back gate to Area 51 near Rachel. So 3 a.m. on Friday morning, when this was supposed to take place, about 100 people showed up. That's what was reported. Now, if you watch the videos of this, there is about maybe 100 people there. But what you don't see is about another 75 to 100 people that are media, that are all standing back filming all this stuff. You don't see all the people walking up and down the roads because they had to walk a quarter of a mile to get there because they made you park your car away from it and walk up. There was a lot more people than that. Misrepresented number of people. But still, you could argue not quite 2 million people. But 100 plus people, I still think it's pretty good. It's pretty gutsy, if I can say so myself. And, nobody was really, or I shouldn't say nobody, there was a few people. I don't think the group itself was intending to storm the gate. It was just more or less, I want to be there. Everybody talked about this, but I want to be one of the people that are there. And people showed up with costumes and signs. So people said they were protesting. They weren't really protesting. It was mock protesting. We're talking about clapping aliens' cheeks and things like that. That's not protesting. That's just celebrating the meme. That's celebrating, the meme. That's all they're doing. They're just living it out, living out their memes. But that was just one area. People actually showed up in 3 different areas. 40 more people showed up to another gate in Tikaboo, the Tikaboo Valley. Both crowds featured people dressed up as aliens, wearing masks, tinfoil hats, T-shirts claiming to have survived the raid, which is a little premature, as well as carrying signs. And of those crowds, again, a lot of media people, a lot of social media people. So a lot of YouTube people were there, a lot of YouTube channels got in there really quick and were trying to get their 15 minutes of fame, push their channel, say, hey, I was there. That's exactly what they sound like too. Hey, I was there. That's what they sounded like when I heard them. But it was pretty tame, I think. It was a little, I don't know what you'd call it. People dressed in kind of weird clothes. People dressed up as aliens, of course, which is kind of ironic since that they were there to save. But anyway, during the day, though, so at night at 3 a.m. was the official time to meet. Maybe about 150, 200 people total between the 2 areas. But during the day, the area swelled to over 800 people at any given point in time were pressing their noses at the gate, the back gate there near Rachel. Got a little nerve-wracking. But again, it was really hard to tell exactly how many people were there because people were constantly coming and going. People were milling around for maybe a half hour to an hour and then taking off because they realized, nothing's really going on. And again, the Tikaboo Valley, another 300 plus people went to that area as well. So a lot more people investigated these gates during the day. Yeah, it's a little safer. But of course, they're not going to try anything because it's during the day. These are people that really didn't have the guts to go there at night. And then, of course, over the course of the weekend, Friday and Saturday, I saw numerous stories talking about the number of arrests that went from 2 to 3 to 5 to 6 to 7, and then strangely back down to 6. But officially, according to the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, 7 arrests by Saturday were made mostly from trespassers as well as partygoers in various locations, including a woman who told everyone around her. Still can't find the video. I don't know if they took the video or won't let them post the video, but according to the people that were there was numerous people videotaping this woman. She said she's going through the gate, and she almost made it under the gates before they pretty much knocked her down. The first arrests were actually right before this, where a pair of men who were detained in their vehicle well past markers that stated that they would be trespassing. So they, again, more people that went past signs in their car. One partygoer was arrested for, urinating on the front gate, which was electric. And of course, I can't believe this. But this person who was arrested for urinating on the front gate, a Canadian of all people. That was shocking. Could have been shocking if it was electric fence. So 6 arrests for gate-related charges, and 1 was for disorderly conduct, indecent exposure with the urination incident. Another 40 people were dispersed after threatening to storm the gate near Area 51 Alien Center. So a little further away at 3 a.m. on Friday. This is the story that didn't really make too many stories. I don't know why. Officers had to use what they say is, quote, heated warnings, unquote, whatever that means, to let the crowd know that no one was going to trespass. Lincoln County Sheriff Carrie Lee stated, quote, they did threaten they were going to storm. Once officers warned them about the consequences for storming the base, they did have second thoughts, unquote. So they were going to. They were charged. They were ready to. They were swarming together. But luckily, there wasn't that many people. Only 40 people. I can guarantee you, if there was 100 people, there would have been at least 20 people trying to storm that gate. People get a little crazier when they get bigger numbers. And I guarantee you, if there was enough people, that somebody would have tried something stupid. And I don't even want to think about how that would have turned out. So luckily, there wasn't that many people that showed up. But yes, they did try. But yes, they did stop them all, pretty much. Well, they did. They were all stopped. So nobody made it. But luckily, nobody had to dodge bullets. That's all I'm happy for. Despite the initial gathering at the that night, things were pretty calm and relaxed, according to officials. It was only when the larger crowd showed up during the day that things got a little tense, a little hectic. But again, all under well control. Despite the crowds again were spread very thin because of the massive area that people were having to go from Heiko to Vegas and Rachel, and people were traveling all weekend. Really, people were wanting to see everything. And the Area 51 base camp event was canceled on Saturday. So due to low numbers in attendance on Friday, by Saturday evening, the crowds were thinning everywhere in the area. And overall, I've read anywhere from 2,500 up to about 5,000 people showed up to where originally it was thought to be about 20 to 50,000 people might show up to this. Now, I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought it was quite a stretch. I was thinking more along the lines of between 5 and 10, but even I was a little excited. But again, it's hard to tell because there was no tickets taken. There was nobody counting people. But then again, people were probably in the same areas numerous times, but they were driving around different places. If you read a lot of these news reports, a lot of these journalists were going from Vegas to Heiko to Rachel, or from Vegas to Rachel to Heiko. So they were traveling around. So everybody was driving around to different places to see what was going on. But yeah, emergency services luckily did plan for about 30,000 people. And good thing they did. The reason there was so much disparity, again, I think is because people were just stretched thin. The gates, there was about 2,000 people that showed up Thursday night in Rachel. Again, a lot of media were parked there, but also just people, campers, camping out. Many people without a place to stay. They actually slept in their cars. You were allowed to park across the street from the little alien on the Bureau of Land Management land for free. So people were just parked out there in the desert. They had tents, cars. People were sleeping in their cars. Very cold at night out there. Wasn't very pleasant for a lot of people. I think that scared a lot of people away Friday night as well. And of course, Las Vegas. Matty Roberts was out there in Las Vegas. A lot of people wanted to meet him. They wanted to get his autograph. They wanted to hang out with him. So he had a large crowd of people hanging out with him in Vegas. And again, a large part of the crowd was the media. A good chunk of the crowd at the gates Friday morning were press, television media. And again, YouTube channel and podcast hosts looking to cash in on the popularity of the event. One person commented that there was a lot of people there at the gates at 3 a.m. They thought there were hundreds of people, but then they realized a lot of them were media. Now, as far as injuries and all deaths and all these things, one man was reported missing that was heading from Heiko to the Area 51 gate, but was eventually found. Several injuries were reported, including dehydration. Despite the wide open area, you'd think that people wouldn't run into each other. But there were 4 reported car accidents, 2 involving cows. I warned you. I talked about it. You laughed. But who's laughing now? Certainly not your insurance company. One vehicle was absolutely destroyed. If you see the pictures of this, destroyed after hitting a cow on State Route 375. I warned you. They're free roaming. They go wherever they want. They're not used to car traffic at night, so sometimes they hang out on the road. The road retains heat. They like to hang out on the roads. The close encounter of the third kind did not injure any humans, but unfortunately the cow was not taken aboard the UFO either and was unfortunately killed. Both cows were unfortunately killed in the car meets cow crashes. So that's your 2 deaths. They were cows, casualties of the Area 51 events. 2 other car accidents involved rollovers. One was a Jeep, of course. leaving 3 people injured, 2 with minor injuries that were taken by ambulance, and 1 woman who was critically injured and airlifted to Las Vegas for treatment. I still can't find any information about her. I'm pretty sure it was a female that was injured in the rollover with the Jeep. Drug and alcohol-related issues, kind of, I don't want to say covered up, but not really talked about. But there were plenty of those. They seem to get the most attention by first responders. But all in all, those who showed up said it felt like a sense of community. And the officers, I think, did a great job to mingle with the crowds as well. A lot of the guys that were standing at the gates at Area 51, I don't know if the crowd realized this or not, but even they weren't allowed to go on the other side of the gate because they were just police officers. They're not sanctioned to go into Area 51. It was said that almost every U.S. state was represented by somebody at the event. And there were people there from numerous other countries as well. A lot of people were traveling and said, hey, why not? I'm in the area. Then again, I think a lot of people committed early. And they were like, well, they say no one's going to go, but I'm going to go. But I think a lot of people were dissuaded by how events were talked about getting canceled and how the counties were talking about getting out of this and all these things. And again, it was a hastily planned event. In Rachel especially, that wasn't even supposed to happen. So you can't fault 2 million people for not showing up. I mean, again, how many people really go to Facebook events they say they're going to go to anyway? And yes, we've talked about it in the chat room, but get ready, because Connie West of the Little Alien is already taking reservations for next year's festivities. Probably shouldn't have announced that until I got my room. But yes, it looks like Storm Area 51 may take place next year again. And it's got its own Wikipedia page. And the after effects, I guess they're still being felt a few days after the event. Lincoln County Commissioner Varlin Higbee says that $250,000 that were allocated for emergency use might be recouped through lawsuits. He said, quote, think about it. Here's an illegal event supporting an illegal activity, storming the gate. We're not sure what we're going to do at this point, unquote. I'm sure we're going to see some potential lawsuits, people threatening each other over money. We'll have to wait and see. We'll see what's going to happen. A lot of people were excited about this and still amazed. They think that this is a turning point to disclosure. They think that because people wanted to show up to this event or did show up to this event, that maybe we're closer to getting the government to open up. I don't think so. I think the Storm Area 51 event, alien stock, whatever you want to pin it on, was nothing more than a bunch of bored people attempting to take part in a curiosity that formed from a meme. It just happened to be around aliens. It gave them a theme to dress up in costumes for. Nothing serious about the release of information there. The events could have been surrounding pretty much anything other than aliens, and I think that people would have turned up anyway. But again, we'll have to wait and see for the dust to settle out there in Nevada to see any more information that may come out of that. But hopefully we're behind the story a little bit. We can kind of move on away from it a little bit, I hope. But we shall see. And in the interim, want to remind you that I will see you next week. But for now, keep your eyes in the skies, your ears in the woods, the hair standing on the back of your neck, and always keep your mind slightly ajar. And above all else, watch out for cars. And don't stop believing. For the Paranormal News Insider, this is Dr. Brian D. Parsons reporting.